So last time, we really got into how Cunningham's dad and his grandfather, really lived their lives, like always ready to answer the call, Kind of makes you think, did young Loren, did he inherit that same drive, that same willingness to sacrifice for something bigger?
Yeah, it's more than inheritance, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like he was raised on stories of faith and action. Like, think about it.
Yeah.
His own father walking away from a stable job to preach. His grandfather always helping those less fortunate. I mean, those aren't just bedtime stories, right? Those are formative experiences. They shape a worldview.
That's a really good point. It's one thing to hear about faith, but to see it lived out, in such a real way, I mean, that has to leave a mark.
For sure.
And speaking of marks, today we are diving into a moment that really changes things for Cunningham. It's a moment that almost feels like cinematic,
Oh, yeah, okay.
We're talking Chapter 4, Waves, 1956. Cunningham's in his early 20s, fresh off a singing tour in the Bahamas. And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah, so what's fascinating here is that he compares this trip to his teenage mission trip to Mexico.
Right.
But this time, it's different. He's not a kid anymore. He's got some life experience under his belt. So how do you think his perspective might have shifted?
That's a great question. It makes me think about how our own passions kind of evolve as we grow. Like what might have ignited a fire in us as teenagers might burn differently, right? As young adults, maybe even stronger. So we've got Cunningham in the Bahamas, feeling that familiar pull towards mission work. But now it's tempered with, maturity and probably a much deeper understanding of the world.
Yeah, and it's in this context that he hears about these 3 teenagers who went to the islands for mission work.
Right.
Totally independent.
Wow.
And they ended up causing a bit of a stir because they completely missed the mark on local dating customs.
Yeah, talk about a cultural faux pas. But beyond the awkwardness of it all, I can't help but think that Cunningham saw a bit of himself in those teens.
Yeah.
That same zeal to make a difference.
Totally.
Even if it meant stumbling along the way, but those teenagers, I mean, they're really just a prelude to something much bigger, right?
Right.
Because this is where we get that incredibly vivid vision, that mental movie, as Cunningham calls it.
Okay, so set the scene for us. He's in a plain guest room after a singing engagement. What's going through his mind at this point?
Well, you have to imagine he's riding that wave of energy, right? And inspiration from the trip. But as he tries to wind down, something unexpected happens. He sees a map of the world. But it's not just any ordinary map.
Mm-hmm.
It's alive. Waves are crashing onto continents over and over. And then those waves, they transform. They literally turn into young people.
Wow, it's such a powerful image.
Yeah.
And those young people, they're everywhere, engaging with people, sharing their faith, caring for the sick and the poor. It's like they're riding these waves of change across the globe. How do you think that vision would have made you feel?
Honestly,
Yeah.
a little overwhelmed, maybe even a little terrified. I mean, it's one thing to feel a call to action, but to be confronted with such a massive, world-changing vision,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot to process.
It is.
And Cunningham himself is left reeling. He even questions, was that really you, Lord? Talk about a direct line.
Right. He's wrestling with the magnitude of what he's experienced. Mm-hmm. Was it a daydream? Was it a message from above? Was it a glimpse into his own future? And here's where we start to see this recurring theme in Cunningham's life.
Okay.
A divine call, followed by a period of testing.
Yeah.
Of wrestling with what it all means.
Right.
Remember that story about the little girl begging for money?
Yes.
This feels like another one of those moments.
It's like the universe, or maybe, a higher power, is saying, okay, you want to change the world, let's see what you're made of. And this time, the test comes in a very unexpected form. A family reunion.
Okay.
But not just any reunion.
Right.
Remember Aunt Arnett?
Oh, yeah.
The one who basically disowned his father for becoming a preacher?
Oh, she was not a fan of that life choice.
Huh.
It caused a huge rift in the family.
Huge.
But for some reason, while Cunningham is on this Bahamas trip, he feels compelled to reach out to her.
Wow.
It's like a separate calling, almost, within this bigger picture.
Wow.
And it takes some serious gates, right, to try and reconnect with someone who's so clearly rejected a core part of your family's identity.
It speaks to a deep-seated need for reconciliation, don't you think? It's almost like he's trying to heal those old wounds, to bridge that gap that, his father's choices created. But it's not easy. Aunt Arnett initially refuses to even meet with him. Can you imagine having the courage to, like, keep trying after that?
No, he even buys her a birthday gift, a beautiful linen handkerchief. It's a small gesture,
Right.
but it speaks volumes about his sincerity and his desire to mend those broken fences.
Right.
And that persistence, it pays off. She eventually agrees to a short meeting, and that's where things get really interesting.
Because this is where Cunningham comes face to face with a woman who's like a living reflection of his father.
That's right. They even share that same, like, Cunninghamness, as he calls it, that unmistakable family resemblance. It's a powerful moment, charged with years of unspoken history, and you can practically feel the tension melting away as they connect over their shared heritage.
But just when you think the family drama has reached its peak, Aunt Arnett drops a bombshell. She casually mentions another aunt, a wealthy aunt named Sandra, who she claims makes her look like a pauper.
It's like solving one family mystery only to uncover another.
Right.
Of course, Cunningham's intrigued. Who is this mysterious Aunt Sandra, and how did she amass such wealth? It's a classic case of curiosity piqued.
And as luck would have it, Aunt Arnett arranges for them to meet. So now we have Cunningham, fresh off this incredible vision of waves turning into young people, about to come face to face with the side of his family he never knew existed. Talk about a whirlwind of emotions. But here's the thing.
What's that?
Aunt Sandra turns out to be the complete opposite of what you might expect.
Right.
She's incredibly kind and generous, welcoming Cunningham with open arms. It's like he stumbles upon this, like, whole other branch of his family tree.
Right.
And it's, it just laden with opportunity.
Yeah.
You have to wonder, like, what's going through his mind at this point. He's had this incredible vision of young people changing the world, and now, seemingly out of nowhere, he's presented with the means to potentially make it happen.
It is a fascinating dilemma, isn't it?
Right.
On one hand, he could easily just accept his aunt's generosity, pursue a comfortable life, maybe even use that financial security to support his own ambitions. But then there's that other path, the one less traveled, the one that kind of echoes his father's choices.
Right.
And perhaps, like, aligns more closely with that vision of young people making a difference.
It's that classic internal tug of war we all face at some point, right?
It is.
That pull of security versus the call of something more, something that resonates with your soul, even if it seems a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
And remember those teenagers in the Bahamas?
Yeah.
The ones who, like, dove headfirst into mission work without really a full understanding of the culture.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Did they have financial backing? Were they independently wealthy? Or were they just relying solely on their passion and whatever, like, meager resources they could scrape together?
It's such a stark contrast.
It is.
You've got these teenagers seemingly driven by, like, pure, almost reckless enthusiasm. And then you have Cunningham
Right.
faced with a similar calling, but with a very different set of resources at his disposal. It begs the question, does financial security fuel the mission? Or does it somehow, like, diminish the need for faith and resourcefulness?
Yeah, that's a question Cunningham probably grappled with,
Right.
Did those teenagers experience something more profound, something like a roar, precisely because they lacked a safety net?
Right.
It's certainly something to ponder.
Yeah, and it makes Cunningham's story all the more relatable, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we may not have visions of waves turning into young people, but we all face those moments where we have to choose between what's, comfortable and what our gut tells us we're meant to do.
It's the universal struggle, between playing it safe and taking a leap of faith. And sometimes that leap of faith means walking away from something good, something that could make life easier, in pursuit of something more aligned with our values, our passions, our sense of purpose.
It's like choosing the path less traveled, even if it means, facing more obstacles, more uncertainty, and that's where the real testing begins, right?
Exactly, yeah.
It's not just about making the choice. It's about navigating the challenges that inevitably arise when you dare to step outside of your comfort zone. It's about proving to yourself, and maybe even to something bigger than yourself, that you're serious about answering that call, even when things get tough.
Exactly. And that's what makes this part of Cunningham's journey so compelling. He's at a crossroads.
Right.
Does he embrace the comfort and stability that his aunt's generosity offers? Or does he forge a new path, one that might be more unpredictable, but ultimately feels more authentic to the vision he's been given?
And here's the thing. Even if he chooses the path of, financial security, will he ever be able to shake that vision of the waves? Will he always wonder, like, what if, What if he had taken a different route?
It's like that age-old question. What if I had taken the road less traveled?
Yeah.
Will it become this haunting reminder of a different way to fill his calling?
It's almost like we're hardwired for a good story, and this one has it all. Family drama, a mystical vision, unexpected wealth,
Right.
and a whole lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
You can't help but wonder how it's all going to unfold.
And that's what makes Cunningham's stories so universally relatable.
Yeah.
We all face those moments of decision, those forks in the road where we have to choose between what's comfortable and what our gut tells us we're meant to do.
It's that internal tug of war between, playing it safe and taking a leap of faith. And let's be real, sometimes that leap of faith means walking away from something good, something that could make life a whole lot easier.
Yeah. It takes courage.
It does.
To choose the unpredictable path, the one where the outcome is uncertain.
It's stepping out in faith.
It is, absolutely. And that's where the testing comes in, isn't it?
Right.
It's not just about making the right choice, but about navigating the challenges that inevitably arise when you dare to step outside the ordinary.
Yeah.
It's about proving to yourself, and maybe even to a higher power, that you're serious about answering that call, even when things get tough.
It really makes you think about, the nature of faith and purpose. Like, is it something we kind of forge ourselves through sheer will and determination? Or is there something else at play, something that guides us, challenges us, maybe even pushes us towards a destiny we couldn't have imagined on our own?
It's a question that has resonated through, centuries of human experience,
Yeah.
Are we captains of our own ships, charting our own courses?
Yeah.
Or are we more like surfers, riding the waves that life throws at us, trying to find our balance amidst, the unpredictable currents?
And in Cunningham's case, he's not just riding any wave, right?
Right.
It's like he's caught a glimpse of a tsunami,
Right.
This massive world-changing force, and he's trying to figure out how he fits into that larger picture.
It's both exhilarating and terrifying, I imagine.
Yeah.
The sheer scale of the vision, the potential impact, it would be enough to make anyone, question their own readiness, their own ability to rise to the challenge.
And it's in those moments of self-doubt, right? Those moments of uncertainty that we often discover, our true strength. Because it's not about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to keep asking the questions.
Right.
To keep seeking, to keep wrestling with the unknown.
And that's what makes Cunningham's stories so inspiring, even at this early stage. He's not afraid to ask the tough questions, to grapple with the complexities of faith and purpose, to acknowledge his own, limitations, even as he feels this immense call to action.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what can we take away from Cunningham's experience? We've talked about, the power of family legacy, the challenges of intercultural understanding, the weight of a world-changing vision, and the complexities of kind of reconciling personal ambition with a sense of higher calling. It's a lot to unpack.
It is, but I think the key takeaway here is the importance of recognizing those pivotal moments in our own lives,
Yeah.
those intersections of personal desire and a sense of purpose, those forks in the road where we have to choose between what's comfortable and what our gut tells us we're meant to do.
Because it's in those moments of choice, right? Those moments of decision that we shape not only our own destinies, but also potentially the world around us.
That's right.
And who knows, maybe, just maybe, our choices will create ripples that extend far beyond our own lives, inspiring others to embrace their own callings, to ride their own waves of change.
And as we move forward in our deep dive into the life and legacy of Loren Cunningham, keep this question at the forefront of your mind. How did this pivotal experience, this vision of the waves, this unexpected encounter with family wealth, how did it all contribute to the birth of YWAM? Because trust me, the story is about to get even more interesting.
Ooh, now that's what I call a cliffhanger. Well, there you have it, folks. Another deep dive, another layer of the Cunningham saga revealed. Until next time, keep those brainwaves flowing, and remember, sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin with a single life-altering wave of change.